Hello everyone, I'm Yvonne, a children's librarian here at the Manchester City Library, and welcome to Elementary Experiments. Here we will do experiments and activities aimed at elementary grades 1 through 6 with a focus on STEAM, or science, technology, engineering, math, or art. This fall we are going to continue to have our in-person events at 3:30 p.m. on the second Wednesday and the fourth Tuesday of the month. We are going to actually be doing the same activity and craft on both days that month to hopefully allow everyone who would like to participate. We will be putting this video up at the beginning of the month so that anyone who is not able to come can still follow along, or if you want to get a sneak peek so that you can come later in the month, that's also an option. Remember, if you would like to join us in person, please visit our website to register to make sure that we have enough supplies for everyone. Any extra craft kits that we do have will be put out at the Children's Reference Desk so that you can take them home and follow along with this video. Now that that's all been covered, let's get into this month's elementary experiment. Hello everyone, and welcome to our Bubble Bonanza, which is this week's theme. So first we are going to learn how to mix up our own batch of bubble mix. So you can buy a batch of bubble mix from a store, but it is more fun and you can make stronger, longer lasting bubbles if you do make the solution yourself. Then we are going to make our solution into a glow-in-the-dark bubble solution. Before we move on to our craft, where we are going to make some big bubble wands. So we are going to see if we can make the biggest bubbles possible with the materials in our kit. So let's get started with our first bubble solution. So to make our bubble solution, what we are going to blow our bubbles with, we are actually going to start with a base of water. Now, water is a really interesting substance for a lot of reasons, and we have covered some before in other elementary experiments. But something that water has is called surface tension, right? So if you've ever seen some bugs on like a pond, they can actually stand on top of the water. Or if you've ever done the experiment where you like take a penny and you add drops of water onto the penny, and you'll watch how it forms like a dome before it breaks. So what allows that to happen is the surface tension of the water. It's how all of the molecules in the water want to stick together, and it takes quite a bit of force to actually pull them apart. Sort of ironically, all that water tension is our surface tension is too strong to actually make bubbles. So if we were to take our bubble wand and try to just blow just water, it breaks immediately, right? It's because the water tension stretches across, but as soon as we start pushing on the water tension by blowing it, then it breaks because it's too tight to bend. Let's imagine that our water is like a stick, right? So when we try and blow on the water to form a bubble, instead of bending and forming the sphere of the bubble, it's going to break, right? But if we add something to our water, say we add some dish soap, the dish soap actually allows the water molecules to have a little bit less surface tension. And that would sort of realign. So here we have a paper Q-tip. So paper is made out of wood, but it is in a different form, right? So when we have our paper Q-tip, we can just bend it, and then we can make our bubble. What's also cool about how bubbles are actually formed is that the soap in our water actually has kind of like two ends to it. You can also think about it like a magnet, how a magnet has like a north and a south. So our soap will have a right hand and a left hand, just like our magnets have a north side and a south side. So the right hand of our soap molecule really loves to grab onto water, right? And our left hand of our soap molecule really likes to grab onto air. So when we have our water and our soap mixed together, when it gets to the top of the surface and we start to blow into it, one hand will grab on to all of that air while the other one grabs onto water. But on the other side of that piece of water is another soap molecule, and one hand also wants to grab onto the water while the other one grabs onto air, meaning that when our bubble is formed, right, then we have a small layer of water that is covered on both sides by our soap, which is grabbing onto it, while the other side is like air is great. So we have one on the inside and one on the outside. And that means that the water is actually contained in a very thin film of soap on both sides all the way around our sphere. So a soap bubble is actually like a pocket of air, and then right around that is a layer of soap, which is grabbing on to a layer of water just around that. And then on the very outside, you have the other layer of soap that is also grabbing onto the water on the outside. So bubbles, we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4 layers basically working together to form our one bubble that we are blowing with our bubble wand. So that's the basics of how we will make our bubble solution and how it works. So you can just make bubble solution with water and some soap. For my bubble mix, I have a half a cup of water, and I'm going to add a half a cup, or a half a tablespoon, a half of a tablespoon of soap. I'm going to mix that in. And like I said, we could make bubbles with just this soap and water. It will make bubbles, but to make stronger bubbles, it's good to add some ingredients. There are actually quite a few ingredients that you can add, and you can look online. If you don't have all the things that I'm going to use, there are other items that you might just have in your kitchens or apartments or classrooms or wherever you decide to do this. One of the things that is in a lot of recipes is actually to use some glycerin. What this does is it just helps makes the bubbles stronger, right? You can find glycerin at like a lot of different craft stores. You can also find it online. If you don't have glycerin, sometimes like a light corn syrup will work. A half of a teaspoon. All right, and I am going to add in one more ingredient because I do want to use this for making big bubbles as well as glow-in-the-dark bubbles. So I'm going to add in a little bit of baking powder. So this is different from baking soda. If you guys make a lot of slime, like me, you might be used to using baking soda a lot. This is slightly different. This is a baking powder. If you don't have baking powder, you can actually make it with baking soda and cream of tartar, which is kind of an odd thing to have around, but it's always something that you guys can look into to try. But I'm actually going to put in 1/8 of a teaspoon of this. So I'm taking my 1/4 teaspoon because I don't have a one that is small enough for an eighth, and just sort of eyeballing it halfway. I'm going to put that in there. And again, do a mix, try and dissolve everything. And this should give a pretty strong bubble mixture. But what I want to do today is to make a glow-in-the-dark bubble mixture. So to do that, we are going to have to buy some pre-made or have some pre-made glow-in-the-dark stuff. I don't have a magical way to make something glow-in-the-dark. But we have a couple of different options. There's like glow-in-the-dark powder. We've used this to make glow-in-the-dark slime before at the library. And then also we have glow-in-the-dark paint. So both of these options, we want to make sure that when we blow our bubbles, we blow them in an area that we can get messy without getting in trouble, right? Because we are adding pigments to our bubbles, which means that when our bubbles land on top of a surface, they might leave like a ring of the color on that surface, right? So we don't want to get it on our walls or anything like that. We preferably want to do this outside and with our adults knowing what we're doing. But if you do use something with some brighter colors, you can use it to make bubble art, which is a messy art that the little guys did here at the library. Okay, so let's see, what do I want to do? Let's do a little bit of each. So I'm going to divide my bubble solution in half, and we're going to try to see which one of which. So if I was not dividing it in half, I would use a tablespoon of glow paint in this bowl. So that means if I divide it in half, I will need about 1.5 teaspoons of my paint. And then for the powder, I think we're just going to have to put it in a little bit at a time and see what looks good. Okay, so now we have them mixed together. I did bring a UV light, which I can use to sort of try and supercharge our bubble solutions. Because as you probably know, glow-in-the-dark items do need to be charged by a light, either the normal light in your house or the sun. And one way to do that pretty darn fast is to use a UV flashlight because UV rays are very energetic. And since they are concentrated by the flashlight, they do tend to do that really fast. Before I do that, I will turn off the lights to see if there's any glow. It's not going to be totally dark, but hopefully we'll be able to see. And then I'm going to try and charge the liquid itself with the light, and then I'll try and do a few bubbles just to see if we can get that going. Okay? Okay. All right, so I think that worked pretty well. It is hard to see the glow of the bubbles, like because it is so thin. But our solution definitely had that glow, and I think our bubbles did too. Because I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the screen, but it is definitely something I think would be cool to look at, especially if you all blew a bunch of bubbles at once at night after charging up the liquid. I think that would be the best way to do it. But we'll put that pin in that and come back to it. I do have to clean up my station so that I can show you how to do our craft, which is going to be our big bubble wand. So not only do we know how to make bubble solution for ourselves and how to make glow-in-the-dark solution, but now we'll see if we can get some really big bubbles out of it. This one can actually do some pretty large bubbles, but hopefully we'll get some like bubbles that are kind of as big as a person with the wands that we're going to make. So we have our craft bag with our instructions in it. This is going to have the instructions as usual for our activity and then for the craft that is in the bag. So in our bag, we are going to have either a pair of sticks with hook and eyes in the end here, or a pair of sticks with beads hot glued onto the top. Not sure which. It might just depend on what we have available. And then we are going to have a length of yarn or twine in there as well. So this is going to be about 3 foot. And then we are also going to have a few beads or a washer weight. So basically we just need something that will make our string be pulled down by gravity in the middle. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to take our string, going to put it through one of our eyelets. All right, that's okay. What we're going to do then is we're going to thread on our beads, then our other eyelet. So what we have is our eyelet, and then our stick, and our eyelet, and then our beads, and then our other stick and eyelet. What we're going to do is tie this off, and hopefully our beads will be enough to kind of pull the string down for us. Yeah, that works pretty well. So if you're using yarn, because it is like a fuzzier, it's going to pull more. So I think you need more weight on your bottom here to keep that going. But for this, it seems to work well. And basically, this is our bubble wand. We're going to take our bubble solution that we put into a wide container, and we are going to put our bubble wand with our little eyelets at the top, or our beads at the top, and we're going to submerge all of it in the liquid, right? So the entirety of our string is going to get wet. And then we are going to lift it up. Oh no, the surface tension. All right, guys, I think we need a heavier weight, because if you can see what is happening is the surface tension of the water, even though we have the soap in there to kind of break it up, is pulling our string together so that it's stuck a bit. All the string here is sticking together rather than pulling apart. And it's only at that very, very top section where the beads were, you see that it's heavy enough to pull that. So I'm gonna try and add a few more beads. So I have added 12 beads to my wand, and I do think that it is enough. However, I also think that one washer would probably also take care of it. You know, the washers or a nut, so a metal disc. But let's see. So we put that in, we pull it out, and that's enough to get some wind in it. All right, so basically once we got to this point where we have a good sized opening in our bubble wand, this is where we would go outside to a place where we had a little bit more room. And also, if we want to measure how big our bubbles get, this is where we would want to lay out either a measuring tape or a couple of yardsticks. And we basically either want to walk backwards along our measuring units, or allow the wind to sort of blow through it and extend our bubble over the units. And then we're also going to want a partner so that they can pay attention to how big the bubble gets while we, or whoever is holding the bubble wand, just to try and use that to make the best bubble and keep it going for as long as possible. Some tips is that it's actually better to do this on like an overcast day, or at least in the shade, because if you remember, It's actually mostly the water inside the layers of soap that is keeping this bubble together. So if the sun is shining directly on the bubble or it is just too hot, um, the bubble will actually evaporate and pop before you can get it to be really big. You want possibly a slightly humid day, at least try it in the shade. Definitely do it outside or in an area where adults have told you specifically that it's okay if you get bubble splatter. Because remember, when our bubbles pop, the bubble mixture that we've made, and that's going to be soap, glycerin, light corn soap, possibly food coloring or glow in the dark paint or other things in there, is going to splatter onto all of the surfaces that is around it, right? So that's why I'm not going to try and do a big bubble where I am inside, because I think that might get me in a little bit of trouble. And instead, we're going to go outside when we do it at the library. So definitely double check to make sure that it's an okay place, but otherwise, go wild and see who can make the biggest and the most colorful bubble. All right, everyone, I hope that you had fun with our Bubble Bonanza. Remember, you can always add extra experiments on. For this one especially, if you would like to try and find the best bubble solution, you can use different amounts of the ingredients that we use today, or look online to see what other suggestions there are to try and build even stronger bubbles for your large bubble wands. One last reminder to double check with your adults to make sure that wherever you're doing your experiments is a safe place to do those experiments. And also a note that our next elementary experiments, so for the month of December, we are having a slight schedule change because the fourth Tuesday that we normally do our second elementary experiments of the month on in December is actually going to be Christmas Eve. So we don't want to do an elementary experiments then, because everyone is probably going to want to be doing their own thing, including me. So we have moved that up a week early. So in December, we are going to have our first elementary experiments as usual on the second Wednesday of December, and then the next week on the third Tuesday is when we are going to have our second and final elementary experiments of December. Definitely check out the other things that we are doing in December at the Manchester City Library for other fun stuff. But keep that in mind that we do have those closures going on. All right, I think that is everything. I will put up some other fun bubble books that you can check out from the Manchester City Library if you want to do more bubble adjacent things. And I will have those December dates, as well as a sneak peek at what the theme will be in December. I'm pretty excited about it because I've been thinking about this theme for like over a year now, and I hope it'll be fun. All right, so until then, I will say goodbye.